Welcome to the Charlie Paparelli Show. I'm Charlie Paparelli. I am so glad you're here. If you don't want to miss an episode or a blog, please sign up at paparelli.com. Just submit your email address and you'll get an announcement on our blogs that go out on Tuesday and also the interviews that get published on Fridays. I've been an angel investor for the last 25 years. And over that period of time, I've talked to hundreds of entrepreneurs who have taught me how to start businesses and how to grow them into really valuable assets. And that's what the Charlie Paparelli Show is really all about. It's entrepreneurs that I invite on the show to help other entrepreneurs do just what we said, start businesses and grow them into valuable assets. Our topic today is I'm an entrepreneur, but where is my sweet spot? And my special guest today is Bryan Wish. Bryan is a UGA grad. He's the founder of the wishdish.com. He also went through a personal path of discovery and also an equipping time in his life here to lead him into founding BW Missions, which he is leading today as the CEO and founder. He said this to me in a conversation we had, and it really summed up what I always thought, how I always saw Bryan, and that is he's a 28-year-old in a 40-year-old, he's a 40-year-old thinker in a 28-year-old body. That's what I meant to say. And he's also, because of that, he's always, strangely enough, because even though he's a lot younger than me, he's always been a confidant for me, and he's also been a personal encouragement to me whenever we've talked. Very unusual. So most importantly, I see Bryan as he's a very dear personal friend. So welcome, Bryan. I'm so glad that you're here.
Charlie, what a warm introduction. And so good to meet you. And I remember before we met driving to Atlanta from Athens with our good friend Marshall, and I was doing all this research on you before, and I was so nervous to meet you. And here we are. 7 years later.
So that's how. So I was going to ask you that. So how did we come to meet? I know we met at the Atlanta Technology Development Center. Okay.
Yeah.
Advanced Technology Development Center, the tech, right?
Somebody told Marshall about you, and so somebody told Marshall about you, and Marshall was going to meet you, and I might have reached out to you at a similar time, or somehow we ended up doing meetings back to back, from what I recall.
So Marshall came in first?
Either he went in first and I came in. I don't remember, but we met on the same day. And I remember it was like a dreary Atlanta day, and it was cloudy, and we were driving in. I was nervous. Yeah, it was an afternoon. It was probably end of the day.
What were you trying to? Why did you want to meet with me? Do you remember?
I don't know. But I loved your style because I was reading your website, and people describe you as the guy who asks why all the time, and you're so personal, and it's like, well, I'm gonna like this guy. So, I forget everything we talked about in our conversation, but I remember walking away, and I was like, what a connection, and it has been, no doubt.
Yeah, I remember. I remember when, in part of our conversation, I still remember the room that we met in and we were talking. I do remember after the conversation how impressed I was with you, because we got into really who you are and why you were doing what you were doing. And it all sort of came together and made sense. And we're going to get to that. But one of the things that you also told me, I remember, is while you were at UGA, you actually were working, I think, was it for the Atlanta Braves? Is that who you were working for?
The Hawks and the Braves.
Huh?
Both the Hawks and the Braves.
The Hawks and the Braves. Tell us a little bit about, so here you are, you're in college at UGA. What were you studying?
Marketing.
Okay. So how'd you get hooked up with the Hawks and the Braves? How did that all come about? I know you needed to make money, but there's a lot of ways to play money. How did you wound up getting into sales?
Yeah, good question, Charlie. I wanted to, I came to college and I felt like for the first time coming to college, it's like liberating because I could kind of get away from Virginia, and there's just something about like how I grew up. Not that I had a bad childhood or things of that, but I was so excited to get to college and just be free and be on my own and kind of figure out life for itself.
Hmm.
And but then I also knew that I wasn't like so excited about college for maybe all the reasons that you might think, the girls and the bars and like and the culture, like, Georgia, like it had a lot of kind of good things, but I saw Georgia as a landscape maybe for my professional development to pursue goals that I had always wanted to pursue. And the byproduct of some of the great, parts of campus were great. But for me, I wanted to always figure out how to kind of carve my own way and do things on my own. And the idea of being an entrepreneur was so freeing to me. And I knew to do that, I needed to gain a lot of work experience and build a lot of relationships.
But how did you
And so,
when you came out of Virginia? So you came out of high school in Virginia and you go to UGA. I don't know very many people. I've never had talked to a student who said, "Yeah, I really wanted to get my professional sort of life on track." You know, I'm,
yeah,
but here you are talking like that, as opposed to like, "Oh my God, finally, I get away from my parents." I get away from my friends in high school, new friends, new environment, no parental controls in effect, right? I could do what I want, but you didn't have that. You had more of a professional look as to what you were going to do at UGA. Why is that? Where did that come from? Do you know? Did you hang out with people in high school that thought that way?
yeah. Well, no, I think in high school, I think two things. I mean, I think when I look at my life, I've kind of built my own internal GPS and navigation system, whether for better or worse. But I think, I had some early childhood events such as a divorce in my family, where I think that showed me a couple things. I knew from that experience I wanted kind of to lead a life on my own terms, and like get my professional life in order, and maybe do the hard work in my early years. So like at the later stage of my life, it could slow down a little bit and I could really enjoy a family and like take in those things. So like that was important. I could figure out my vocation and my fulfillment early, and then also then bring in family and all the things into that after. So I was really set on kind of doing life in reverse and kind of figuring out the deeper, meaningful questions early. And so that was a driving
How did you
force.
know you wanted to be married and the whole settle down thing and all that so early in life? When did that become so clear to you?
Well, I just think like when you grow up and there's like a brokenness at home or a broken environment, you realize like that's something that you wanted later. And it's not something I've ever rushed to have, nothing I will ever rush to have. But I wanted to get myself set up foundationally and financially and in a good spot on my own. So one day I think I could, you know, cherish those gifts when they entered my life at the time that they were supposed to, without rushing to them. But I
Now, when
thought,
you went down there, did you actually know the word entrepreneur? Did you think entrepreneur when you first started
yeah,
as a college student?
I think I was always very entrepreneurial. I mean, in high school, you know, there were a couple of things that happened in high school as well. Events like getting cut from a basketball team twice,
Mhm.
and making it in the year between, or like grades. School never came easy to me, and so I like could work so hard, but at the end of the day, there was a ceiling. And so my whole focus in high school was set myself up for the best opportunity to get to college, where college could set me for the best opportunity to then go from there and have an expansive career and like life with no limits and no boundaries. And so
But you had that
I was very,
vision. So you had that vision from high school, and a catalyst for that
oh yeah,
vision seemed to be your parents' divorce.
the more I like go through like therapy and go through like life events, I'm realizing like that is very much at the center and has shaped a lot of my decisions and has just shaped a lot of my intentionality. And it's weird to think
how old were you when all that went on?
I was 7 or 8.
7 or 8. From that young age, it kind of it put you on a path to where you are today.
Yeah, it was definitely a defining moment. And I look back, and just navigating that whole experience. I think I'm finally, 28 years old, actually very much processing how I've designed my life in such a intentional, almost systematic way because of that. And that comes with its positives and negatives. Every strength has a weakness, but overall, it's, I think, made me plot very intentional steps with how I live and why I live the way I do. And I'm like finally like facing that and reckoning with that like very clearly.
One of the things that happened.
But I think all along.
What?
No, go ahead.
I was going to say one of the things that happened to me as you're telling me this story is I was probably a junior in college, I think, when I got this clear vision. It was a Saturday morning, and I still remember the song that was playing, and it was called Saturday Morning Confusion. Life is just an illusion. Okay. And I had a clear vision that I was going to be married and I was going to have kids and I was going to have a career. I didn't know what any of that meant, but all of a sudden it became sort of this place that I was headed for. And that sort of put a lot of things in line for me as I went from my junior year to senior year to from non-professional work to professional work. So it's interesting that you had a lot of that same view, but it was caused by something different, which was, a divorce that happened very early in your life.
Yeah, and I think to your point, it's neat how like those things came into light for you because those serve as like guardrails for how you navigate the world and like how you make decisions or how you let things in and out of your orbit. And I think for me, I didn't know at the time how it had been affecting me later, but as I kind of look back at different things or process different emotions at different times in my life, I realize a lot of it's tied back to a very early focal point, and it's very consistent in the directive kind of course it's taken me. And it's actually there was I also grew up. Yeah, well, I don't know if I want to go here, but I also, even after the divorce, there were some things at the family front that I looked at and that were very rocky and kind of walking on eggshells a lot with certain things. And I was like, I would never want to have to go through something like this again, or put kids in a situation of the feelings of maybe that I went through. And so because of that, I've been trying to, I think, optimize my life in a way and set it up as entrepreneurship as a vehicle to give me freedom to really mitigate against the risk of, maybe those events happening to me at a later point in life. And entrepreneurship has been a freeing vehicle to create within. And I look at my life as a creation and I get to design it and architect it in the way I want. And to me, I think that's what's pushed me towards entrepreneurship because it's been a freeing vehicle.
How come if somebody who's looking
guide
since you were looking for stability, right? So there was all this instability and somewhat chaos in your life, right? Early on, this walking on eggshells, which is a terrible way to kind of go through life as a kid, and I had some of that myself, is why didn't you look for the stable job? Why entrepreneurship, which seems to be a career early on that creates tremendous instability and uncertainty. It's
Well, I think it was with that growing up, but then the experiences of like basketball, when you could work so hard for something, not for just a few years, but over a period of 4 or 5, 6 years, and have a ceiling kind of put in front of you with how you could work so hard to be on a team get cut. You could make it the next year, work doubly hard, and then to make the next team work even harder, right? And for a coach to tell you to risk putting a year of effort to you show up and you might have the best performance in the tryout, but then there's someone at the other end of that decision who can get in the way of the dream.
Okay.
And so I think it was,
and that's what happened to you in
the
basketball.
way I grew up. Yeah, and even with like grades in school, like I worked so hard with academics,
Yeah.
but the classroom never came easy to me. I had to stay after. I barely passed physics.
Uh-huh.
I had to literally beg my way into Georgia. I wrote a letter to admissions basically explaining how I'd fulfill their vision and mission statement to get in, because I didn't get into my first 4 schools I applied to. So Georgia let me in with a scholarship for like in-state tuition. And so it was like I started to see these early seeds of, if I was a little creative and I bent the rules into the way I wanted to shape the world, I could make things work for myself. And so I didn't want, you say, why did I go after something that was the most unstable? In one realm, yes, this is maybe how messed up my brain is, but in one realm, entrepreneurship to me is actually the most stable, because you do have the most control, in my opinion.
That sounds antithetical. You know,
might go to
for the
shit.
world, that's antithetical, what you just said.
Sure, it might be. It's my own probably crazy GPS system inside me that's been hardwired. I could change if I wanted to. But I actually felt the most control because I never wanted to be set back or limited in what I could pursue, and like limited to what I could build. And I look at that for all parts of my life as well. Like it's all a creation. And I'd rather take the risk at something I believed in than to be limited and suppressed.
So you pack up all your bags.
Other people.
So you pack up all your bags, including all your emotional baggage, and you take it down to UGA. Where do you go? What happens in, I didn't plan to go here, but what happens in freshman year? I didn't know that.
It was a sprint. Yeah, it was a sprint. I mean, the first like 4 months, it was like trying to get my feet wet, trying to find a friend group, like trying to get comfortable, like really trying to get my legs under me, because I'm from DC area. It's more or less the North, even though I'm from Virginia. And I came to this cultural divide in the South. And, leisure of life and the Zaxby's and no, I'm kidding. But it's just a different way. And it was, I felt so out of touch with the culture, and I was just looking for people to connect with and navigate college with. So the first 4 months was like, okay, I need to find like a friend group. Like I need to fit in, or I need to like find a group to feel comfortable navigating this like unknown world with. And I found that I started to head into the winter, the spring semester.
Where did you find it?
And as soon as on the 8th floor of Russell Hall, I met some guys when I moved up from the 5th to the 8th floor, and they're just good people, and they love to play basketball, and we just bonded. And
did they have the same kind?
They were that was my group.
Life? Did they see school and life the same way you did, as sort of purposeful to get them to get them to some end?
No. Okay. I think there was a disconnect about, and I would learn that. Like I always knew in my gut of my heart, I just knew there was it was an 80-90% fit, but there was 10% of that friend group.
Yeah.
It just did not understand me and the way my mind worked. And I knew that, but it felt good enough for college to navigate through. I made my best friends my senior year and after college. So I never really felt like I had great friends until senior year after college. Now, I came back to my spring semester once I kind of had my legs under me. It was this bull rush to find out what I cared about. I'll never forget. I got back to college and I was like, what do I like to do? And I was like, I didn't want to be a lifeguard at the pool. I didn't want to go hang out with my high school friends in the summer. I just wanted to I just wanted to find out what I cared about. And I remember having a conversation with my mom, and she was like, "What do you like to do?" And my parents, and so I love sports, and I love the idea of business. I was like, it was this epiphany, this idea that sports business was an industry. Like people actually worked in sports. Like that was the tunnel I grew up in. I had no idea like there was industry around sports. And so I made it my goal that I was going to find an internship by the end of spring semester.
Okay.
Now, if you don't know the sports industry, working in sports is the hardest thing to do.
Really?
Like it's not easy to get an internship in sports. Incredible demand, low supply, no pay. So I made a database of like 100 plus organizations, contacts, people, and it was just, how do I beat down as many doors as possible and beat down as many doors as possible?
What was your pitch?
And after, I don't know, I had an email, I found people, I said, I'm a freshman at UGA, I want to work in sports and do anything I can to break through. Like something probably like a nice paragraph email. I connected with them at the beginning. And I really felt like I was just like beating down doors. No one had any reason to talk back. By the end of the summer, I had 2 internship offers. One was to work at American University. By the end of the spring semester, I had 2 internship offers. One was to work at American University in their sports program, their sports marketing department. The other was to work at like George Washington, doing like sports programs. And I ended up picking American, but it was like in that moment where I was like, wow, I can really chart my own destiny. I can really chart my own way. And yeah, and I got very aligned on my professional path early and like so tightly focused, because I was, it was like GPS kind of routing inside of me that really wanted to figure this part of my life out first, so I didn't have to do it when I had like people in my life to pay for or care for. I didn't want the stress of like changing careers in a big fashion, when I had other responsibilities, because I probably didn't want to.
You feel like you put a stake in the ground saying, I'm going to be in sports marketing.
Yes.
Career-wise. And this is in the spring semester.
Yeah, and I just went for it.
Okay. So what happened?
Yeah. So I interned there at American.
Usually for those kind of things, you sort of show up you usually show up the first day, and at the end of the week, you go like, oh my God, this isn't what I thought it was going to be, right?
Well, I just wanted to, right, but I just wanted to work, and I just wanted experience, and I just wanted to learn. Like I wasn't like set, like sports business was going to be like everything. I just wanted to put a stake in the ground, pick a path, and just go.
So
and American gave me a chance.
So you don't know anything about business, and you're working in sports marketing. What do you mean? What did they have you do, and where did it go?
Yeah, I was showing up. I was there every morning around 7:30 in the morning. It was usually the first one there. My boss's name was Robert Sherman. He still works there. Had been there probably 10 years at the time, or 11. And he took me under his wing, and I did all the flyers, and I organized all the documents, and I prepped things for the fall games, and helped, get the marketing assets ready, and just dotted the I's, crossed the T's, did the jobs no one wanted to do, filed the papers, whatever it took, right? At that point, it's not really about like doing the sexy stuff. It was about getting your hands dirty, and I did. And I was taking an accounting class as well at night, and I did both, and I got through the summer, and it was great. And I was like, wow, I want to taste more of this. And my idea, once I tasted it, I was like, I want to understand all of it. I want to understand the foundational elements of this industry. I was like, I want to work at a pro sports team. I want to work at an agency. I want to work at another college athletic department. So I had in my mind that I was going to go do it all. And so for the next 2 years, I did. I went back to college, and it was a bull rush working. I got a job working with the athletic department at UGA. And then I got an internship as well working at the agency called IMG, which was represented Georgia Sports Properties.
Oh,
And they
yeah.
did all the deals with Coke and Mountain. And then I loved the IMG
How did you get
experience.
those
It was
jobs?
so
You must have
stimulating.
you must have had a good pitch getting into like IMG. I mean, you're talking about one of the premier
Yeah.
agencies.
So Robert Sherman, he connected me with someone at UGA's athletic department named Brendan Dwyer, who used to work at Georgia, or we used to work at American. Robert got me a paying job, doing softball games and soccer games. I was a score guy, in the booth. Like, okay, great. UGA athletic department on my resume. By the way, I was the worst scorekeeper for softball games because the game went so fast. I couldn't keep up with it mentally. But anyways, I had the job.
I don't believe that, but I'll take it. Okay,
yeah,
go ahead.
Beautiful softball. I got the strikes and outs. I was so nervous before the games. This is good. This is a good flashback. So then, and then I was looking around and I was like, this agency idea. I forget where I found it, but I think I saw the job posted and I found the people behind it, and I just beat down that door and I picked up the job at the agency.
Did you have an introduction
they hired
at the
me
agency? Did you have somebody introduce you into the agency?
No, I think that one was more organic. But I had qualifications at that point. I had a bit of a platform I was building off of, right? I had IMG. Right. I'm sorry, I had American and I had the UGA. Like, I had experience, but I knew IMG was a bit more expansive and could put me on a bigger stage.
Yeah.
Just because of it's global.
Well, I asked you that question because I think it's so incredibly important. What you did there is you did whatever needed to be done with, was it Richard Sherman?
Robert Sherman.
Yeah, with Robert. And so you just did whatever needed to be done, did the best that you possibly can. You showed up first thing in the morning before anybody else. So he was impressed with you. And then he made a recommendation. He, as a mentor, he makes a recommendation, gets you your next job. That's incredibly important to people to understand. It's not just about the work. It's also who you're serving and how they might then recommend you into the future and launch your career. Okay, so then you go to AMG, but because you have a resume and you have some references, which is something that you have to get out of the ground.
Right, and I was a sophomore. I was in college, and I was just like, I was bull rushed down this path, right? And so, the people I was working with were seniors about to graduate, and I was always the youngest one, and it was good, right? And I could always kind of. But IMG was great, and this is where I met some of the people who really started to expand my creative thinking, because it was about sponsorships and about selling and kind of pitching and coming up with ideas, and I just loved it, and I loved the game day, and I just loved all of it, and I got in and I beat down that door, and then the people who worked there, a lot of them became mentors. You
must have been doing some really low level work at IMG. I mean, you're 19 years old, right? At that time?
Yeah, but I was and I wasn't. I was in the sense, like, I was the guy on game days who got up and I worked before every game, and I was like at the tailgate tent, cleaning tables and, all the nitty gritty, right? But I also, like, the office work was fun because there were a few guys in there. One name was Mark Spiegel. Mark started Rubicon Global. But he was taking kind of a hiatus from Rubicon, and he went and worked in sports at IMG. So I remember Mark. He introduced me for the first time. He said, "He's like, I'm doing this as like a fun job, but I'm a serial entrepreneur." I'm like, what's a serial entrepreneur? But my eyes lit up, like it was that temptation to pursue. And
did you ask him that question?
So Mark
what's
really
a serial entrepreneur?
I don't know, but I just remember I'll never forget. I was outside and we were by the tailgate tent getting ready for game day on Saturday, and the music was rocking, and it was about to be Saturday in Athens, and it's a special day. And so Mark and I hit it off, and then Mark really took me under his wing, and he let me showed me how to put assets together, how companies buy assets, like sponsorships, and how they buy media impressions, and how to piece it together to create a corporate package. And Georgia has assets around spots and slots.
Why did he take you under his wing? What did he see in
I
you?
don't know. He probably saw me and him. I don't know. I mean, it was just there was a life. There was just a life to the conversation, and just really, it was just great. I don't remember exactly being so long ago, but he definitely took me under his wing, and I was like, wow, that's really cool.
And so he started teaching you a little bit more of the complexities of the business, is what you're saying.
Correct. Yes. Yeah. He taught me the complexities.
And so
that was
where
great.
does that lead you? So now you're working and you learn how to put together these assets so that you can then send sponsorships and sell sponsorships.
Yeah. Yeah. And then from there, what I did was, I was, let's see. That was this. So during the fall, I'm dating myself now. So this was all happening during my sophomore year back at college.
Yeah.
And what I did as well was, so that summer of my sophomore year, okay, I got an internship at the Hawks. Okay. And I went and I worked under their head of sports programs named John Babel, and I got to run their partner sports camp. And it was an unbelievable experience. I mean, I was in a professional organization. Same thing. I knew the ropes though.
And it was basketball. I knew how
to network at this point.
And it was basketball.
Yeah, and yes, and I was the youngest intern ever to work through the Hawks organization. And I shouldn't have had the job. I basically had to get the president at the time of the business school to basically sign off that I was already in the business school for the Hawks to accept me into their program. Hawks had a requirement you have to be in the business school. I went to the head of UGA and I said, Terry, and I said, look, his name was Mark Dawkins. I said, Mark, I'm not going to be able to do this job. I said, your school they said, this is a school about creating opportunities for students. I said, can you help me here? So he wrote a letter that, had to be kept in secrecy. And I got the job with the Hawks, and I started my summer internship. So, it was just continuing the path, right? It was, I wanted to soak up every experience, and I worked under someone awesome there, right? It was a male figure. His name was John Babel, and John was awesome. John was a family guy, a hard worker, creative, at the office at 7. We always got coffee at Dunkin' Donuts, and took me under his wing, put me through hell and back in the best way. And I learned so much, and he was so detail oriented, and he had such a good personality, and he was so positive, and he loved his wife, and he loved his kids. And there's a light to him. And I was just wow, I was this guy is special. And he really looked after me as a person. And
but the life that he was living was the life that you wanted. In other words, that was that was part of your vision.
The
reality of your vision. It was right in front of you in John, in effect.
Yeah.
Yeah. That's cool. There was the attraction. But again, here it is. He's taken you under his wing. Can you look back and say, what is it that they saw in you that made these men want to take you under their wing? They had other people working for them that they didn't take under their wing. They were just employees.
Right.
Sounds like you don't know.
I was just curious, and I had desire, and I didn't really know where I was going, but I think they saw something in me that they wanted to nurture. I mean, similar to how I met you. I think people who have light can see the light in others. And when you meet somebody who has something that resembles something about yourself, you look at that and you want to nurture that because it reminds you of yourself, or you want to help them along that journey. And I would say, like, I got very lucky, and that journey continued to progress. And what was ironic too was all these people in my life who were helping me were older. Like my level of friends had not kind of caught up to my mind, and so I was always trying to meet older people and understand older perspectives. And because I wanted answers, I wanted clarity. I was searching. I was searching for myself and the
Absolutely.
life I wanted to live, and I was able to learn that through others who had been there. And I think I've always been drawn to older people for, and I'm also so passionate about helping younger people, navigate a similar journey for a very similar reason. So, John was special, and you're right. He was living a life that, to a degree, I wanted to live, but I think I wanted to do it more entrepreneurially. But yes, everything he represented, I was from a values perspective, I was very aligned with.
So where did the entrepreneurial piece, like I wanted to do it entrepreneurially, not like he did it? Why wouldn't you just accept the way he did it?
Because again, I didn't know at the time. I mean, I think I knew an inkling under me. It was like that burning itch inside of me that I always knew I wanted to explore being with, like having my own, like my ownership over my own ideas.
Okay.
And that seed,
was there some point
began
that you
to kind of play itself out.
Was there some point that you were frustrated as you moved up and up in the organization, getting more and more responsibilities? Was there some level of frustration that started to set in, saying, I have better ideas than the things I'm actually working on?
Yeah, so let me jump to the following summer between my junior and senior year. So
Okay.
my junior year of college in the fall, I was running the sports business program at University of Georgia. It's called Professional Entertainment and Sports Association. And I was leading the sports department. I was responsible for the spring summit, and I was also responsible for the fall game night. Those were the two big capstone events of the year. So during the fall event, I put together a game night. I brought in a speaker series, and I sold 60 tickets on campus to students, loaded up the bus, and created a pretty epic event where for students to learn, get connections, and then boom. Now, that was the night where everything changed. Everything changed for me because, and I'll never forget, I was sitting in that big fishbowl, Hawks Arena, and what's it called now? State Farm Arena. It was called Phillips Center then. And it was my student group on the top level, the top seats, like at the very top of the, nosebleeds. There were about 60 of us. And then all around me, there was no one, right? Because that's just typically Atlanta basketball. But that bleak, like, top of the stadium, I saw a vision that it could be filled with college students just like myself all around. And the way I saw that happening was through date nights and Greek life. And so after the event, I went to the head of ticket sales who I'd networked with the summer prior when I interned, who spoke at my event. And I said, do you guys work with college students? And he said, no. He said, there's way too much transition. He said, we just don't have time in our organization to really focus on this group. And I remember having this feeling, I was like, I can do it. And so I went home that weekend and I put together, I'll never forget, I spent all weekend on it. And I wrote out my vision. I did all these calculations. I put together like a 15-page business plan. And I sent it to him. I said, hey, can we meet? He was blown away. I'll never forget. It was right around Martin Luther King weekend. And we met at a coffee shop. This was the spring semester of my junior year of college. And so it took a couple months for like this to all kind of happen between the game night in November to me presenting my vision to him. And he's like, let's run with this. Like, let's figure it out.
What was the
And so
vision so
from
that
like
I'm not
February
sitting here?
slash,
What was the vision so that I'm
I
sitting
wanted,
here not wondering what it was they're
I
talking about?
wanted, I wanted to take all, like, there were like 9 or 10 colleges in Georgia. And between those two colleges, I think there was over 250 some thousand students. And I just like, if I could get 5% of these students and student organizations to do game nights at the Hawks, we could do, like $120,000 in revenue the first year off ticket sales. I would basically build the system at Georgia, build the database, the relationships, the content, all the things that would do it, figure out the way to partner, and they could scale that to every single campus. And then I would find a Bryan and put them on every
the
single
top of
campus.
Phillips Arena, which is always empty, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
They would be the liaison between them and their student groups, and they'd report to me, and I would talk to the Hawks. A year later, we did so that following year, that fall semester, when the season started, from my senior year of college. So I worked on building that all summer long and spring, going into my senior year of college. Because that was entrepreneurial to me. I was truly creating something. Now, I had a brand and a foundation of a credible brand under me, but I could create something entirely new. It was the best place to fail. It was a good launch pad.
It was all marginal revenue. It was revenue in a market that they didn't get anything from. They weren't, so it was brand new. I mean, it's great.
Right. And so I put it all together, come back to school my senior year. We launched the program. We launched the program. We did the first year this program existed, did $80,000 in ticket sales. It came together. Or maybe it was like 70, but it was right around 70.
Yeah, but it was to a market they didn't get
sales.
10 cents from. Okay.
Right. And it was about the long-term value of the market. It was about to sell, when they graduated, season ticket sales too.
Absolutely,
it was about the data. Like, they got so much more than ticket sales revenue. And so, that was like when I knew I could do it and do it on my own. And so what I was thinking at the time was, after I did it, it was kind of nearing, I was in my senior year of college in the fall. And I was like, I have the ingredients, I have the template, I have the thing to make this come to life. I'm going to scale this to the whole NBA. I'm going to take this model, I'm going to do it in every NBA market. And so I remember I got people from the NBA on the phone. This one guy named Murray Cohn, never forget the call. He was running the NBA, ticket sales, at the global level. And he looked at me and he was
are they out of New York?
Yeah. Yeah. And I remember he just he completely blew off the idea. He's like, this won't work. He's like, NBA teams would just bring this in-house. And, and I think one, I was pissed. I was like, screw this guy. And then two, I was like, you know what? Maybe I shouldn't build a business off someone else's brand. Because in a sense, I was like the middleman. The middleman always gets squeezed out. You kind of learn. The Hawks wanted to bring this in-house, and then I wasn't going to get the job to do it. They hired someone to do it. And I just felt it was an incredible experience. The Hawks organization, the people I worked with were incredible, but the way it all kind of went down, I was just ugh, I didn't like it. It didn't feel good. It didn't taste good. And I ended up doing it for the Braves as well after I graduated, because I had all the relationships and it was a good money maker. And it was great. The Hawks gave me the platform to do it. But I just kind of looked 5 years out and I was like, this isn't sustainable, nor do I want to keep this going. But I realized it was in that moment, one, I could create a vision, execute it, and see the results. And I need to do this for myself now, because if I don't and I try and do it for someone else, I don't want to take the chance again of that being taken away from me, similar to basketball.
That is really cool. So John really is the guy that launched you into entrepreneurship.
No,
Because
it was
he gave
Eric
you that
Platt.
opportunity to say,
Well,
yeah, this is a really good idea. Go
right.
run with it, right?
Yeah, of
Versus the
course.
guy in New
It
York
was
that said, nah, nobody's going to go for this, and he just shot it.
well, it was that culmination, right? It was all the people from Robert at American to Mark at IMG to Brandon at the sports. They all like it created this momentum, but it was all the daily reps, all the small steps, all the hard work,
Huh.
right? And it could all kind of start stacking up. And so it was a culmination of everyone's like belief and like saying go for it. And so that was really empowering because I was able to get the reps and do it for people. But I think after that experience, I said, okay, I need to figure out this world on my own. Like I need to like really pursue entrepreneurship on my own path.
But look what you did. I just stepped for
Because
a second. Is you
I want to,
really you paid when you got into the sports marketing business, okay, or the sports business, if you will. You were willing to do anything. In other words, you paid your dues. You didn't and so you learned and you served. And then at some point, you earned enough and built enough of a resume to get a vision that was, you knew that it was important for them to get marginal revenue, like you said, for the Hawks, for the stadium, and you knew that, and you knew the college crowd. So you couldn't just walk in with that day one with John,
right,
right? I mean, you really had to
right.
earn your way into it. So you were patient in building that career, as short as it was, but it was still 2.5 years.
Yeah, it was, about 3 years when it was all
Yeah,
said and done.
right. So then you
And
get
it
this
was an
idea that,
incredible
okay, I
path.
can do a vision, I can execute, I can create results, but I want it to be mine. What do you do with that then?
Yeah, and I think one more thing about this is, I think, interesting thing back to the world of just my next steps.
Yeah.
Um, I, I mean, we're really going at all the pieces. This is good. I started to look down. If I stayed in the sports industry, I started to look 10 years down, and I started to look at the ascension of what that could be. And I saw myself in a corner office making like $200,000-$300,000 a year, where I'd probably be right now. And I was like, and I'm showing up at the games every night, doing it for this brand or that I didn't own. And I looked at that because I saw people who were doing it. Man, they were very happy doing it, but I was like, is that what I want for me? And like I like my gut, I knew like I had built such a big foundation here. And so it was really hard to realize I needed to kind of switch paths. But I learned so many skills, relationships, things that should have been transferable to the next. So I just started looking down the sniper rifle, and I said, no, I don't want to go 300 yards out. I'm
Yeah,
okay
but
with everything I
that,
learned to
and
turn.
I have heard, is this happened to me? Okay. I was working in an accounting firm and I eventually looked around the office, seeing where people, I saw the steps and where you end up. And I said, I mean, I can't be that. I don't want to be that. Right. And I know other people that had that same exact insight. I mean, I know a guy that worked for a very large CPA firm and one of the big at the time, big eights. Okay. This is years ago, and genius guy. His name's Barry. And I said, why did you leave? I said, you were partnership material. You could have been. And he said, I went to the eighth floor, which was where all the partners were. And I saw them at their desks, and they were like 50 years old, and they all looked like they were 70. And I said, I don't want to be this. And so he quit and he joined us in the software business, okay, to run with our tax products. But now I'm hearing it again from you. You saw the future and it wasn't you. So then what do you do?
Right.
I know it was a scary moment for me. It's like, if I don't do this, well, this is what I'm good at now. This is my resume. What do I do?
Yeah, that's a good question. While I was working on this program, I had a kind of a, I would say a defining moment between my junior year and senior year of college as well. Um, Even though I was working on building this program, my junior year of college in the spring semester, I went through a breakup, and I think it was a straw that broke the camel's back as well.
Hmm.
I had been racing, right? Like if you look at this trajectory, I had been racing through college, right, to work and to figure things out, right? It was a race. I had, and things were just starting to break down. I remember that fall semester in my junior year. I was so tired. I was sleeping every weekend. It was just really bad. Then I got into this relationship. It was a good relationship, but like it just kind of naturally split, and like that just kind of crushed me, right? And it wasn't the relationship itself, but it was just like everything. And I finally had to kind of take a look and look at myself in the mirror. And I think for those like 3 months, February, April, I woke up, went to class, was a zombie of myself. I remember I wore long sleeve shirts and pants because I didn't want to be seen. Um, I was just scared. I was scared of my own shell. And that summer was when I started to do a lot of the therapy work and really kind of look inward and kind of face myself head on and like ask myself why I had been taking this track, why I had been pushing so hard in sports, and what I was doing it all for, and like why I was trying to be so successful at something that I didn't really like fundamentally care about. Um, and or they just didn't internally align. And
Oh, wait a
so I
second.
really had to face a
Telling me
lot of
though,
those demons.
I'm trying to line this up so I understand it. So everything was working in the work, but none of it was
Yeah,
working for you.
correct.
Okay. So everybody thought you were
And so
great
I
that you
hit
were
that like
working for, but you didn't think, but you were sitting there going, I don't want to, this isn't meaningful to me. The fulfillment
right.
wasn't there.
Yes,
Okay.
correct.
All
And
right.
so yeah, it wasn't there and it was misaligned. Correct. And so that junior year summer was really pivotal for me because I was able to really kind of start asking myself those questions about like who am I and what was meaningful and who did I want to become, and really like was smacked in the face with life, but actually had a few months during the summer to really come into myself a little bit and like understand and look back and say why I had charted down this professional path to like be successful. And a lot of that like hard work was to like overcome people who didn't believe in me, or didn't think I was good enough, or prove people wrong from prior years of my life. So there was I was playing with those emotions. So I had to like really look at that and say, no one really cares about you and your success. And like I needed to start doing things for myself. That doesn't mean I've lost my drive, but I've started to live much more intentional. So you said, what did you
You
do
have
next?
friends? Excuse me, but did your friends play into this? Were they a support group, or you were actually working on that 10% where you didn't connect with your friends? And you follow me? You said 90%. It was really great in freshman year, but there was 10% that was missing.
Yeah,
Are you now addressing that 10%?
I yes, probably. And I think this period of my life is what led me to figure out that 10% that was
Oh,
missing.
okay. Okay.
So I built my best friends after I kind of went through this period
Huh.
because I started to like really look inward and understand who I was
Who
and
helped you
discover
in
who I
this? Who
was
helped
for
you
the first
during
time.
this period of time?
I was working. I mean, my mom would played a really big role in it, and I was working with a doctor out of the area who is a sports performance coach, and he was able to guide me
Oh, good. Okay.
effectively. Yeah, he was great, and yeah, and so I was a lot of just internal reckoning for sure during that period of my life,
Were you
and
into, did you deal with depression back then or anything?
yeah, I mean, it definitely. I mean, I was depressed for probably like 4 or 6 months.
Wow. Did you have to take any kind of?
Yeah.
Did you take
Yeah.
anything or anything?
No, I thought I could figure it out and get myself to a better place, and
Right.
I never really even considered it. Now I do know people who take different mental health and depression, like SSRIs and
Right.
Lexapro and different, I think those are great if that works for you. But for me, I never considered it.
Good.
So, but yeah, it was that summer though where I was able to start asking the hard questions of life early. And so when I got back to college, I was very much transformed. I was very much a new person. I
What
had
was the
grown into
breakthrough
this
then?
new shell.
Where was the breakthrough? I didn't get the breakthrough. I saw you coming into it saying, "Who am I? What do I want to do?" All this kind of, and then I'm renewed now, and I'm back in school, going back to school as my senior year. What? There was a breakthrough. How did that happen?
Yeah, I think it was like going through all the mud of like the reconciling of who I was and why I had sprinted through college over the last 3 years. Right? There was this. It took that 4 to 6 month period. It was probably the like lowest point I had ever gone through. I call it a quarter life crisis for all it's worth, but I really did start questioning things much differently.
What answers did you
Around
come
that
to
time.
when
And
you?
so
What answers did you come to that sort of released you?
I think that some of the biggest answers were like, I think some of the biggest answers that I came to were like, I didn't have anything to prove to anybody except myself.
Mm-hmm.
That was one. And then I finally took a point in my life to stop and think and like really slow down. And I had never done that before. So like learning how to like just take time for intentional reflection. And this was intense reflection because I was processing so much of the past at once. Now reflection is probably part of I have a weekly performance sheet I write and reflect into, right? So, but back then it was never something I took time to slow down. And then I felt like I had evolved into a new self. And so when I went back to college that fall, my friendships, the ones who were like the 80 to 90% fits, like I really felt the disconnect, right? I really felt I was growing into something new. And that's when like I started to like really, find myself again through entrepreneurship and being to create and to like create something more fulfilling, and started to take some thoughts and ideas from that past summer and apply it and that's kind of the path I met you on. But that's where I started to build my best friendships, because I went through a period that just like really evolved me quickly and like transformed me, and a process that I still go down today, no doubt.
Where did you meet those once you went through that transformation, came out the other side, you're in your senior year, where did you meet those friends that became those real connections? People
Yeah,
like Marshall, I
I
know,
started
who's
working
still
on
in your
this.
life, okay?
Yeah. So what happened is I had this inkling, this intuition inside of me, and I wanted to go out, and I felt very alone and isolated in the experience I just went through so young. And so I wanted to create a community of people who could share similar stories, who were navigating kind of hardship and obstacles, to like build friendships and relationships. And I had this idea of like starting a blog. If my first thought was, let me like start a blog and share my story. And then my second thought was, I don't want to start a blog because everyone does these blogs, they put them out one time and then they never continue. And I didn't want that to be me. So what I did was, I was like, where's the white space here? I was like, what if I got a bunch of people to share something really meaningful? And I could share as well, build a community at the same time, but be understood by others and really share with people in this common kind of thread and bond. And that was this idea. The first name of the platform, it was called Influence. And the idea was write something meaningful to influence someone else for the better.
Hmm.
And then from there, it evolved to Wish Dish, which was this, as you look at the website today, it's a bunch, there's about 700 or 800 blogs on there about people sharing these very personal moments from their life. And through that experience,
How many blogs are on there?
There's like 700 or 800.
700 or 800. Okay. I just want to make sure that number got out. So it talks to the seriousness of what you had created, but go ahead.
Yeah. But it was through that and figuring out that journey that was so exciting to me. And I was able to meet, the web developer, like that was so exciting, or meet like the speaker at an event, or I started meeting people like, Marshall and Matt Thomas, people who were doing entrepreneurial things. I started getting connected to this community. So I'd done this process of self-discovery, and then that led me to starting to meet this community of people who are all creating. And I felt so liberated and freed. And I was like, these are my people.
I love that. These are my people. Okay.
And so
they're all the same age as
I really met.
Right?
Correct.
Yeah.
Yes.
Okay.
But more or less. Marshall was a bit older. Matt Thomas was a bit older. I got connected with Jim Flannery at For Athens in the incubator at UGA. And I got, I just started trying to meet everyone who was creating and find the resources who would help me get this vision off the ground. I had no idea where it was going or how to plan it. But I was so excited by it. It was like this thirst that this fire hose I was able to drink from and give me the education to like enact on an idea in a digital way that could scale and have impact. It was fulfilling.
How would you describe for the people that are listening, how would you describe Wish Dish to them? That idea, what was it?
Yeah, it was a platform for people to like show up naked online, share a very intimate part of their life with the idea of inspiring someone else who's going and navigating through a very similar journey in a really, and so they could connect to those people in a very meaningful way.
Okay.
There were a lot of things wrong with it. I've written an essay on all the things I did wrong with it, with the brand, but it was a very meaningful pursuit. And there were a lot of things I learned, and it gave me doing that. And
if 700 to 800 people, you have 700 to 800 blogs on that site, it connected with a lot of people.
Yeah.
Right. It wasn't like you had to convince people. When you talked about it, they said, "Oh, I'll share something." Right.
Well, the way I first started getting people to write was I went down my phone list and I just had a script. It's like, hey, I just started this. I'd love for you to write. And they're like, well, what's it about? And I was like, here's like the little guidelines. And I had a little Excel tracking spreadsheet. And I was trying to get everybody to, write. And I had a list, and I started getting submission after submission. And I was like, oh, wow, this could be something. And then I had to get an editor because, I'm not a writer. But I needed someone who could write and kind of see the errors. And so I just figured it out as I went. I had no idea how I was going to make money.
But the first place that you went was creating content. I need content, right? I need to fill the site.
Right. I need content.
And that's when I think I met you.
And it was all about, right. You met me, I think, my senior year of college.
Yeah. And you were into this, man, look at all this content. Look at this cool idea. And I thought it was a cool idea. And that was part of our conversation that I thought was so interesting, is I kept saying, well, why did you do this? And what you said is it was freeing for me to share my stories. It helped me move ahead. I remember that part of the conversation. And you said, if it would free me up to share those stories that I had, all bottled up, if you will, to help others, maybe other people have those same stories. And I went, that is such a cool idea. Yeah, I can see that.
Yeah.
So it became this
Exactly.
online therapy session, with a huge group of people. All right.
Right, more or less, and it gave people a voice, and it gave people a way to share in a way they would have never shared before, and it was expressive, and it let people be themselves, and I thought that was so powerful, and I mean, I took it as far as I could, and
Then I
you know,
remember our
fanned
conversations
out
were our
financially.
conversations with you were, so man, this is really, really great. Okay, so how are you going to make money? And then
Right,
you went in
and
that
I
direction.
really
Tell me
struggled with.
what happened during that when you went on that. Okay, I've got content. How am I going to monetize this thing so that I can make a living out of it and stop
Well,
sleeping on people's couches? Okay.
yeah, my dad wasn't happy to hear I was sharing a room with Marshall. I'll tell you that. Um, um, we're very close now. We've evolved in a big way. I I did not have a plan. That was my issue because there was so much I was figuring it out. I didn't know. I didn't have the leadership and the understanding or the strategic thinking or the I was still forming all of that. So it was hard to balance the day to day with the future, with everything in between.
Mm.
And so I didn't have a plan. My like hunch was I'm going to get hundreds of stories and like investors going to show up at my door and say, "Here you go." But like I really didn't have a plan. And like I also like in my heart I felt really uncomfortable monetizing people's human authentic raw emotions,
Wow, that's
and I just
really
couldn't bring myself to do it.
that's really interesting. Okay. That made it sound like it's
Um,
sort of um I'm making money off of other people's confessions in effect, okay? Kind of a deal, or difficult
right.
situations
And
in life. That's
right. And I couldn't find the right way. The nonprofit never felt right because I think I could have done that
yeah.
and would have felt better, but it never felt right. And it's different now with like what we're doing today, helping people share their raw selves, but really helping them do that in a professional lens, right? That's different. There's still vulnerability
So how
there,
do
but in
you
a shared collective community.
when you get to the end of this? So here you were. How much money? I'm just curious. How much money were you making when you were doing the Atlanta Hawks and the Atlanta Braves and all that kind of stuff?
So when I graduated college, I had about $20,000 in the bank with the Hawks and Braves money included. I also had $10,000 in a mutual fund, which I liquidated. So all in, I was about 30K in, and I was like, okay, I'm
And
going to
but
take
when you
this
quit the
30K.
Hawks, when you quit the Hawks and the Braves, it was over. Your income went to zero, and you were wish dish, and that was it.
Right, I had about
Right. So then you take the
and I
wish
had
dish
about
as far as you
30K.
can take it. You spend your 30K going through getting the website set up and doing and living and doing what you have to do. When do you get to the point where you go like, this isn't going to work? How did that happen? How did you get to that? Because
Yeah, good
one day
question.
you called me and you said, Charlie, I'm moving back to Virginia. I'm going home. And I was like, whoa. So how did you get to that point?
Yeah, yeah. I I was living with Marshall. I remember moving in with Marshall. So I was supposed to live with someone, and I had a pretty good situation. And essentially, we couldn't do that anymore. And so I had like probably like 5 or 6 thousand left. It was I was like August of graduated in 2015. It was probably August of 2016 or July. And I was like, I don't know what I'm going to do. I've been working out of Marshall's office for like $50 a month. And I remember getting to this point of like, fuck, or sorry, what am I going to do next? I was like, where am I going to live? And I remember telling Marshall, He's like, hey, you should come move in with me. So I snuck in. Like, I remember I moved all my stuff into his apartment and like broke all the leasing violations. They had no idea there was like another person living in this because there were 3 other rooms. So Marshall and I literally split a room. He had a top bunk in the bottom area. And so like I either slept on the floor or slept on his bed when he was at his girlfriend's. This was about 6 months. But I said to myself, when I move in, I said, I'm not going to be here more than, I said, I will not be here more than 6 or 7 months. I was like, I felt so humiliated. Like I just felt bad. I mean, I was like, oof. And so I kind of had to pull myself
I
up
love
by my
you just saying,
bootstraps again.
I just felt,
I said,
I love that. That says it all. Okay.
well, I did because I just knew like I felt very humiliated. It was not a fun conversation. It just was not a good place to
Yeah.
be. Now, at the same time, I knew from Kairos and the Hawks, I'm sorry, from the Hawks and the Braves and from Wish Dish, I knew I loved a few things. I loved scaling and building community and global community. I loved the diffusion of content. I loved that being in a very meaningful way. And at the same time, I kind of looked 5 years out, 10 years out, and I said, if I'm going to build a company again and do it successfully, what are the skills I need to do it again? What are the relationships I need to build? And so I kind of made a list. And then I started putting out that summer, actually. I started putting out some feelers to a bunch of organizations and people. It's like it took all the skills from the sports business of finding people. And I did it with prospective organizations and people and finding just banging down doors, probably 200 or 300 different organizations and people. And I came across this one group called Kairos. It was this global community of entrepreneurs. And they'd done events all around the world and had done incredible things. And I remember I found this like fellowship community of entrepreneurs, and I requested every single person on LinkedIn, found every email, I was like, I want to be involved in this. I didn't know why, but again, intuition just went after it. So I ended up banging on every door I could find online. I got a message back from their CEO. He said, I've heard about you now by like 6 people. I'm not sure what you want, but like, good timing because, we're about to launch I said something to him like, hey, I'm in Atlanta. Maybe I could help with the Southeast. And I can volunteer. I was just trying to break through, I was just trying to find a way. And so I met their partner. I put together a plan for how I'd go about doing it, which was great. Why? Because I'd done all this work for the Hawks and Braves and Wish Dish. It was like a combination of all these skills, and I put it into this volunteer position.
Yeah.
And Kairos, they had an investment vehicle behind them. They had, a lot of cool things that they were a part of. So I started running the Southeast, and I was working with this guy, Ryan Bloomer, hand in hand to put together this infrastructure that was going to be the fund's community infrastructure to drive good deal flow to the fund. And I was really excited about it because I was learning from someone. Ryan was teaching me strategy. He was really pushing me. I remember, and then, one day he said to me, this was probably in the fall now, like October. So July, I noticed I was in a hard spot. So 3 or 4 months later, I'd been volunteering, helping put the Southeast infrastructure in place and how that would scale globally. And Ryan called me up or emailed me. He's like, do you want to do this and be paid? And I was like, sure, I'd love to. He didn't really know my financial situation. I don't know if I really shared where I was. He just knew I was trying to figure it out. I don't think he knew like how bad like it really was. But you act as if, as they say. And then Ryan offered me a job, which led to a few months later by the end of the year, I was working for them full time. and I was running their global community with Ryan by my side, and we were putting down the infrastructure globally. And I was meeting, I mean, it's like I skipped so many things. I was meeting like the most talented Ivy League students from all around the world, building entrepreneur, who are budding entrepreneurs who are Kairos is going to probably one day invest in. And that was like where I knew I could sense it, like my intuitively, like I just knew I should jump on this train because it could get me to a place that I couldn't get to on my own.
So you meet all these people, in a lot of cases, what happens is when you start meeting all these people that are focused on their own opportunities, you feel like, yeah, you're helping them and coordinating efforts and keeping the tribe together, but you want to be doing what they're doing, not doing what you're doing.
Correct, but there's like this tipping point because I knew that it was the best thing I could do then was to build as many incredible relationships, support this community, learn as much as I could from them, build Kairos, like commit to the job I signed up for until I felt like I outgrew the shell or until the shell outgrew me.
And did you outgrow the shell?
I worked with them for almost a year. And it was one of the most special, transformative chapters of my life. And honestly, it's probably given me one of the best networks I will ever have. The network was powerful, really good people, and authentic people.
So why didn't you stay there?
So, because they were going in a direction with their fund and the community and the investment. And I remember Ryan said to me, I don't think there's much more that you can learn here, because I don't see you becoming an investment partner with the fund. And I don't know what else I can teach you on the community side. And so, we agreed I'd step away in a few months and, but it was an incredible experience. I didn't know what I was going to do next.
That's what I mean. So there's this door that just got thrown open for you and you can't see the other side, right? So what do? Now you have a new book of business. Okay, a new network, I should say, a much broader network. Where do you go from there? How did you progress?
So it was at that point in my life I had moved to Virginia.
Uh-huh.
I was back in DC, and I'd been home for about 5 or 6 months, and I had a few months to kind of figure it out, but I was really nervous because my dad told me when I moved home, you can only be here for the summer, and then you got to find a place on your own. You're not going to just live home for free.
Yeah.
And so I had like 2 months. They were actually pretty scary. Like it wasn't like, the leaving from Kairos wasn't the most amicable and like the most honest sense. It was, I didn't necessarily want to go, but it was probably, in retrospect, was probably the best thing that happened.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm so close with Bryan and the team today, but it was the right thing. And they could probably see further out ahead of me than I could at that time. And so I had about 2 months to kind of figure it out. And so I went back to like the same old strategy. I made a list of DC entrepreneurs that I wanted to meet because I asked myself after Kairos, I looked internally, I said, am I ready to start a business again? Am I ready to like do something again? My answer was no. Like I did not feel equipped to, but I said, what are the things that I need to be successful? One of them was I wanted to work for a CEO to really understand how they operated day in and day out. And I really wanted to understand the distribution of content a bit more and how that connected to community. And I wanted to also work where I could go into something and only have about a year of a commitment again, because I knew I did want to eventually, I was feeling a bit more ready and equipped. I just wasn't equipped yet.
Yeah.
And so I reached out to every entrepreneur I could find in DC. And one of the entrepreneurs I reached out to accepted a meeting with me. His name was Alan Gannett.
What was your pitch to the entrepreneur? You reached out to them.
I just said, hey, I just moved. Yeah, I just said, I just moved to Washington, D.C., or I said, I'm new to the area and I'm trying to understand the local scene here and would love to connect.
Okay.
Alan made 30 minutes for me. I would never forget. I walked out of the meeting. I was so scared. Like I was like, that was so fast. I could not keep up. He had a million questions for me. I couldn't get the words out fast enough. And I gave him a thank you note. I really, truly never thought I'd talk to him again. We stay in touch just a little bit on email. And I'm at the Forbes conference a month later, just trying to figure out my next steps and meet people. I was in Boston. It was October of 2017. And I get an email from Alan. He said, "What are you doing after Kairos again?" And I said, "I'm still trying to figure it out." And he writes me back. He's like, "I have an idea." I was like, "Okay, what's that?" He goes, "Do you want to run my book launch full time?" And so Alan had told me during our meeting that he was writing a book and he was in the middle of a merger of his company. And I was like, wow. I was like, that'd be amazing. And like he was the CEO, it was a short time thing. It was all the things I made the checklist for of what I wanted in my next role. So as soon as it landed in front of me, I knew. And I said, yes. I said, count me in. And I got back home and we started in November. And yeah, it was so special. Like it couldn't have been more aligned for what it was.
So what did you learn? So how long did you stay with him?
I worked with Alan for probably a year as well.
Okay.
Maybe like 14 months. I've never watched, Charlie, somebody who was so consistent. Alan was beyond consistent. Day in and day out, he was a machine. He was smart. He was so strategic. Like everything he did was calculated to a degree. He just knew. Yeah, he knew how to be strategic and see 6, 8, 9 months out and really plan and work backwards. He was really good at marketing. I really learned about messaging from him. I really learned about how to like drive content to achieve specific results with marketing. I mean, I learned, how to launch a book, really effectively. And, I was able to get my hands dirty. And then I was his chief of staff. I was his head of marketing and I did all of his events and did, the PR and worked on the content, really drove the community. Did all of his logistics and planning and meetings. And, I wore like 19 hats for him, but he pushed me. And I told him at the beginning of the role, I said, I want you to push me. I said, I want to start a business after this. And I said, this is kind of my training ground to get me ready. And he loved it. And so when he really refined me, and I think he saw something in me, but he pushed me and he was really hard on me. And I made a lot of mistakes and he made me own my mistakes.
Mm-hmm.
And he really made me just become a, he gave me a platform to excel on. That was much bigger.
Tell me a story of how you owned a mistake. You made a mistake and owned it. He made you own it.
Yeah, I mean, I don't remember anything specifically because they were the smallest things that were so infrequent. It might have been sending the wrong type of message off his LinkedIn account. But literally, I remember I was meeting with him in his office and he said to me, Bryan, he goes, and you get to take a sticky note out and you write double check on it and put it at the top of your computer. So every time you send an email, send a text, send something, like you have a reminder right in front of you to double check. And like that's how bad it got.
Yeah, but that's a pretty cool. That's a pretty cool idea. I like that.
And Alan was just like this true like creative genius who pushed me. And this was like his third
So
company or second company that he had.
when you were working for John at the Hawks, you said, I looked down the road and I said, I like who John is. I think it's wonderful. I don't want to be John. Did you look at Alex and say, I want
Right.
to be Alex?
Alan.
Sorry.
Yes. In a lot of ways.
That's a yes and no, right? So
as
there were
well.
some
And
elements, yes. But there were some elements, no.
Correct.
Yeah. Okay.
Well, yeah. I mean, but it's they were just yeah. I mean, Alan was a very close representation of like entrepreneurially kind of showing me what was possible. And that was really fun to work under because I was really helping him carve his way on something he really believed about with creativity. And that was really empowering. And he gave me a platform to create whatever castles I wanted on it. And that was really cool.
So how do you end it with Alan? It seems like it was
we lined it up and I worked,
but it had a fuse on it from the beginning.
Yeah. Yeah, it was good, right? It had a fuse and so I knew when I started that the most logical thing that I could do would be to build a website in the background, taking everything I learned and really work to build a personal brand. Because given some of the events that happened at Kairos and then spinning off of Alan, I knew that I needed to kind of own my own voice and like my own future. And I didn't know exactly what that was going to look like, but I knew that Alan, if I was ready with a website that I could launch off of, I knew two things. I need to have a brand ready to go and a website by the time I was done to showcase some of my experiences.
But
I also knew I needed to really excel.
But what you were in search of is a problem to solve and an audience to solve it for.
Right, which I didn't exactly know, but I knew I wanted to work with other people like Alan. It would be a really good place to start.
Oh, so you know who you wanted to serve.
That was the audience.
Yeah, okay.
I did. I knew I wanted to work with entrepreneurs. I didn't know if they were Allen's or other entrepreneurs. I didn't know what kind of like the type and specificity to the degree I know today.
Because you didn't know the problem you were trying to solve.
So I didn't know the problem I was really solving. I was just doing my job for Alan the best I could. I was trying to get my and I knew if I was going to have success, I needed Alan to really launch me. So like similar to all my other experiences, I knew succeeding on Alan was so important because that would help me in my next steps. So it was a sheer focus to really do well for Alan because then my next job, when I launched my next business, I needed that support and that kind of vouching for me beyond just a paycheck, right? There was so much more at stake. I could see that. So I knew I was built a website and a brand in the background.
So it's tough to build a brand. It's tough to build a brand if you're not where you're just featuring the work that you've done, but it's not pointed at anything, right? It's sort of like saying, I'm a very talented craftsman. I work well with my hands, but does that mean you're a good plumber? You're a good carpenter? You're a good, what does it mean? I don't know what to do with it. So I don't understand the brand part of it. A brand has to be associated with a market and with a problem that and an expertise, I would say. Okay.
So what I did was while I was working with Alan, I put together a website and it showcased all my experiences, what I did for the Hawks and Braves, what I did for Kairos, and what I did for Alan. I designed it in a way that spoke to entrepreneurs, but also left me a little open just so I didn't box myself in too close, but like gave myself a focus. So at the time I've been working with brands and entrepreneurs to really help them bring their visions to the world. It was a bit vague still. It's still a little wide.
I like but
it was focused in the way it was designed. And so when I was done with Alan, he launched me and did a post about me and shared with his community. And that helped lead to my first 4 clients. And I had no idea what I was going to do or what I was going to sell. I didn't know the products, but I was like, I'll figure it out. Right. And what was scary was when Alan launched me, I was like 15K in debt because I spent a bunch of credit on like getting everything ready. I was paying for my apartment in DC. It wasn't easy. So when Alan launched me, I had no idea what I was going to sell. I just knew the market I was probably going to be going after.
But what did he say? I was like, what did he say in that blog that got those 4 entrepreneurs to call you? He must have said something that hit a nerve that they said, "Oh, this guy can help me."
Right. He posted about what I did for him, and I started meeting. That one post he did about me turned into about 20 plus phone calls. And from those phone calls, I was able to convert 4 people to paying customers. And I was able to get them to all pretty much do the same thing. So I was able to create repeatable systems because I didn't want to be spinning myself in tons of different directions. I want to figure out if I could build a product. And that product, what is today in a very robust capacity, a big thought leadership system, a big thought leadership product to help people drive thoughts, build community. And that's what we're doing today at scale and with a lot of capabilities built into it. But I took those 20 plus phone calls and I really tried to ask a lot of questions and figure out where I could connect with people on. And a lot of people expressed they had trouble getting their thoughts out and building community around their ideas. And so I worked to kind of focus in on that idea, leveraging these different social platforms and trying to use content to drive community and community to drive content.
But then the community that you built drives content? So I build content.
It's hard to.
Yeah, go ahead.
It's hard to have content that makes a difference without a community or an audience, right?
Yeah.
And vice versa. Like community, they both need each other to kind of work.
Okay. So it still seems a bit vague. I just want to make sure that I understand the business. When you said, bring your vision to the world, I'm an entrepreneur, and you come to me and said, I can help you bring your vision to the world. That's like a big thought. That's exciting. I like that. Okay. How does it get to the ground so that we can do something with it?
Right.
Just give me an example.
What that's been distilled down in. Right. So what that's been distilled down to today is really taking very specific experts in given spaces. A lot of these people are CEOs who have a lot of expertise in a specific area, and driving their expertise and turning them into thought leaders and really helping them drive thought leadership online in a variety of vehicles. So it's really about creating thought leaders in a very scalable fashion that's very authentic. So an example would be someone like Nir Eyal. Nir has wrote a book called Hooked. He's wrote another book called Indistractable. Nir's probably sold millions of books in his lifetime. Nir had developed really good books and had a lot of traction through different PR vehicles. And he had built a pretty big online following, but he didn't know how to put content into these channels and drive his thought leadership and expertise. So we were able to take all of his work and dice it up and slice it up across all these social platforms to help him drive email subscribers, book sales, do a really successful book launch, build an audience in the community to drive speaking opportunities, an audience in the community to drive his courses, right? And then really creating engaging ways to interact and connect with the people who are following him in a very authentic light. And so that's someone like that.
That's interesting, but how do you charge for something like that? Is it by a fixed contract?
It's a subscription model.
Huh?
It's a subscription model. And because like building a brand, becoming a thought leader you have to build a brand to become a thought leader. It's a marathon, right? It's not something that you just do for 6 months and then you're done. So what's beautiful about the model is that it's very, predictable. It's retainer based, and it's a service professional fees type of model. And that's how we do it.
Okay. So you took everything that you had learned all the way back to I'll just say the Atlanta Hawks, And you kind of built on all of that. And then you
Yeah.
finally, after working with Alan, you finally
Right.
came up with the methodology, if you will, the process, and said, here's where you
Yeah.
want to come out. Here's where you are now. We can stick you in this side and off it goes, and you will be successful. It just takes time.
Correct.
But you're not actually
Yes.
building content. They're building content, and you're really getting all of that out. Building communities is more your responsibility.
To a degree, yes, but we started to get into the game of really helping people build their brand IP from the beginning. So we started to build a brand arm to the business. We're helping them architect the foundation of the brand and the messaging that's going to be built on top of the brand and to drive the thought leadership. So we're helping them now at the beginning of that journey. And now we're starting to help them at the end of that journey, like create podcasts or write books. Because if we're developing the brand IP, the bones of which the brand is going to sit on and be built on, then we can create the content, the books, or the social posts, right, off of their story, off of their venture, off of their thought leadership, and now go out and create the books, create the podcasts for them, help them with the speaking arm, right? So we've really built out, and we're not done yet, but we're building out the infrastructure for a thought leadership platform. So we can be that one-stop shop for someone who wants to really have a brand and be a thought leader, not just come and do it, but do it and build products around it and build a business around it.
Okay.
So they can enact on their vision.
How long do these people stay with you for? Have they stayed with you? Like those first 4 clients, have they stayed with you from the big till now? There's no way for them to leave you, really, yes, because you're it, right? I mean, you become their back office sort of marketing department.
Right. Correct. Absolutely. One of them still with us from the first 4. But most of our clients are with us for at least a minimum of a year.
Where did they go after they leave?
Some have been with us 2 years, some a year and a half.
I mean, you seem to be so critical.
Well, it depends.
To them becoming thought leaders. How could they ever leave you? I don't understand.
Yeah, I think we've really had to learn who our core customer is. We've really had to learn what a good fit is. We've really had to learn how we work, our processes, right? So yes, I think the service we provide is critical.
Yeah.
It's solving a pain point. It's not a vitamin. Like it is, I think, a true painkiller, as they say. But other people kind of do this work too. It's not like we're the only people trying to do it. I do think we're doing it in a very unique way, and we're starting to serve a very unique customer set. But it's hard for someone to want to leave. But I think we've gotten our product processes team better over the long haul, and to make it scalable in a really beautiful way.
Who's your so people are listening to this. It's going to be on video, or it's also going to be on a podcast. Who's your target? The name of the business is BW Missions. Okay. And so give me your byline, your mission, if you will, your byline maybe, and who your target customer is that could benefit most from your services.
Yeah. So the tagline, as I shared before, is really turning these experts into thought leaders.
Okay.
Okay. Our core customer are people who they're in this act 2. They've had a very successful act 1 or series of act 1s. They've done the thing that's been very financially profitable. And they're looking at that next mountain of their life and they're saying, how do I make this really successful? How do I really go out and do something meaningful? Build thought leadership on something that they care about, that they want to impact a certain demographic or community around, and bring that all together, right? And so we're working with these people who have been very successful financially in their act 1, helping them build the brand, thought leadership products around what they want to go do next, and do it in a way that can evolve and be sustainable for the long term. So that's been our core customer.
How many books are in the typical? How many books are in the typical Act 1 person that is this expert who wants to be a thought leader?
I mean, it depends how many books a person wants to write. That's a good question. I mean, We're writing 2 books right now for different clients. They're their first books, but I think one of them wants to write 3 or 4. I mean, I think to do a really quality job, a book's written about every 5 years, right? 5 to 7 years. If you're going to do like a really good job and promote a book, it's just what I've seen or observed. Some people want to do a book every year, but a book in a sense is a product extension that has a whole new line of content around it and a whole new line of products around it. So what's really neat about this industry is like when a new book comes out, it's just another product extension with a whole nother content, extension of somebody that takes on a specific focus.
I see. Okay.
To answer your question, there's no real specific answer. But what's so important, I think, in the work that we do, and I think, is building a brand and a foundation that can evolve with different product lines. And I think what you see with a lot of authors or a lot of these even product-driven CEOs is they get so attached to the product they're driven. But when they want to change the product line, the brand becomes inefficient because they put all their resources behind a specific product.
I see.
So if we can get people early who have not done this process yet and capture them, we can help them from the ground up, create a more scalable and efficient brand and a whole new product line off of it. And I think that's what something like Apple has done so well is all their products ladder up to the Apple brand.
Yeah.
The products are extensions of a message that they're selling. We've taken a very similar approach and starting to do it more repeatedly, I think in a really neat way. And so that's why we've had to build in a branding component because it's really hard to bring an idea to life if it's not on the right foundation. Just like if a marriage is not on the right foundation. You can build the biggest house possible, but if it's shaky underneath, that's an issue. So we really try and get right on the foundational floor of a person's brand before we build the house on top of it.
So where do you see, you look out, you're good at looking out, okay? And seeing things, like you said, 5 or 10 years out and said, I don't want to be that. Now you're into something that you've been doing for a while and you become very successful at. What does it look like when you get out another 5 years from now? So then you get to your early 30s here, almost your mid 30s, What does it look like? What does the business turn into?
Yeah, I mean, I see the brand arm really fleshed out.
Mm-hmm.
I see a speaking arm. I see an audio video arm. I see I really see a platform. I see a centralized brand platform that really can build these brands at scale, can drive the speaking opportunities, can write the books, can do all the different elements. I see us being the go-to place for if you want to build a brand, we have all the resources, materials, infrastructures to do it. And I see us really taking the top of the market and focusing there for the next probably 3 to 4 to 5 years. And then I see us kind of taking those same processes and skills and kind of going down market and kind of streamlining that in a way to help people who couldn't afford what we're doing. And so I really
if I were you, I'd stay at the top.
Right. But
always sell to people with money. You heard me say that before, So those act ones that you're talking about, I think are phenomenal. I could see that this turns into a big, you become basically a brand agency, okay, for future thought leaders.
Correct.
Yeah.
Yes.
I love it. Well, we went on a long time, we didn't know how long we'd be talking, but I just think that there's so much here. Thanks for digging deep on some of those times when you're in college. I think there's a lot of people that are confused, but I think you entered college uniquely, knowing that you were there for a purpose early on. Most people sort of turn on at about junior year. They go, oh my God, I'm going to graduate in 2 years. I better get serious, right? You were serious from the day you entered. Pretty amazing. And now you're running your own company.
Yeah.
And you have 6 employees, you said, right?
6. Yep.
Yeah, full-time employees. You're crazy. A real agency at this point. That's bigger than most agencies that are out there. So you're on your way to building something great. I'm so proud of you, Bryan.
I hope you're right.
Yeah. Well, you seem very,
Well,
very
thanks for making.
settled with it
Thanks.
and excited about it. This seems to be everything that you've done fits together hand in glove with where you are today. And that's why it just works.
Correct. Probably. You're absolutely
Probably.
right. That was always the goal.
All right. Well, thanks for your time today.
Absolutely.
Yeah. Well, let me
Thank
close
you,
this.
Charlie. I really, really.
I'm sorry. Go ahead. What were you going to say?
Oh no! Thank you for having me.
Oh man, it's always good to sit and talk with you. I love talking to you. So I'll do it anytime. I hope that I'll close this out here, and I'll just say thanks for attending the Charlie Paparelli Show. I hope that you'll pull something from all of these life stories and life experiences that Bryan had. He knew very early on he wanted to run his own show, didn't know what it was, learned later in his college career what serial entrepreneurship was, and just started pursuing it and just followed the road to where it took him. There's not one bit of his experience that he gathered from his freshman year in college until he started his own business that isn't used today. And that's the big lesson I take away from this. There is no bad experience or useless experience. It's all great experience. Again, subscribe at paparelli.com. You'll never miss an episode. Until then, thanks for attending. God bless you.